It's been 11 years since the Suncoast has seen the wind and rain of a hurricane, but you can't let your guard down because it only takes one storm. This is Storm Season 2016 Hurricane Amnesia. Here's Chief Meteorologist Justin Mosley.
Thank you for joining us for this SNN special report. For the next 30 minutes, we're going to show you how the experts prepare and give you a behind-the-scenes look at how all the data is collected and what that means. The hurricane season is just a few days away, and we want you to be prepared and informed because the weather experts are saying this might be a more active season. But remember, it only takes one storm to change the city and place you live in. And for all of you who have never lived through a natural disaster, listen up. You may want to pay close attention.
It's called Hurricane Amnesia. After more than a decade without a hurricane striking the Sunshine State, amnesia is what the weather enterprise community is working to overcome. Each year, state and local officials put out the word to prepare for a storm before the season starts. But with so many newcomers to the Sunshine State and even more that have simply forgotten the power of hurricanes, the question comes down to, how do the professionals effectively motivate you to take natural disaster preparation seriously? We have Herald Tribune real estate editor Harold Bubel to thank for coining the phrase.
For the population as a whole, we could say the population in Florida has forgotten what it's like to go through a hurricane. But for a lot of people who are new, it's hurricane ignorance. They just don't know what they don't know. For the people who have lived here for over 10 years, they might not remember what it was like to board up their house time and again in 2004 and 2005. And at that time, hurricane fatigue set in. It wasn't a pleasant experience. You try to put that out of your mind.
Despite the record-breaking lull in activity, there's a silver lining to our story. In the years that have passed since a storm, forecasting has improved significantly. Then let's consider the potential impact of social media and its ability to help us communicate the science, the urgency, and invaluable information. For me, it offers hope, but the question still remains.
How do we communicate risk, uncertainty, and impending impact and get the people to take appropriate actions? And that's why we have things like this program, and we have hurricane guides, and we have constant updates. It's up to the meteorologists really to remind people.
Having a plan in place now can put you and your family a step ahead of the storm. Most of the population that has moved to Florida in recent years has little to no experience preparing for a storm. Lack of knowledge poses a serious threat in and of itself and creates a nightmare scenario for emergency managers.
A lot of people have no experience. Hurricanes are just something they see Jim Cantori talk about on the beach in Naples, once or twice a year, so they don't know what to do.
Motivating you and helping you learn about the potential dangers of a tropical system and how to prepare are their top priorities among the weather enterprise community.
Forecasters say, hashtag it only takes one. So if it only takes one storm, it's an easy season unless a storm hits you. If there's one storm and it hits you, it's not an easy season. It was a bad season.
So the imperative remains the same. Preparation is the key to surviving the most devastating storm.
There are many different tools that we as meteorologists use to prepare or forecast for hurricanes, and one of those is what we call a weather balloon. Rodney Wynn, a general forecaster and meteorologist at the National Weather Service, says that this is a simple and effective way of getting the most accurate weather predictions.
The entire world launches the weather balloons at the same time at 0 Zulu and 12 Zulu. So with the different time zones, the weather data is collected at the same time. One of the important processes of predicting the weather is analyzing the atmosphere, and one way that we do that is by launching a weather balloon twice a day at 7 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the evening.
I take the balloon outside and fill it with hydrogen gas. It's a flammable gas, so we need to be careful with it. And the balloon gets filled up, and then we tie it with a string, and then tie that string to a parachute, and then tie string from the parachute to a radio sound instrument, and that's what sends us back a radio signal with the temperature and the dew point and pressure measurements and also reference measurement, and it keeps cycling between those measurements, sending back through that signal that goes to an antenna on top of where we inflate and launch the weather balloon.
When the weather starts becoming more active, the amount of weather personnel also increases across the potential coverage area.
A lot of stations upstream will start launching weather balloons, a couple days ahead of time to get an accurate assessment of what the atmosphere is doing.
Meteorologist Charlie Paxton at the National Weather Service says that the information is minute to minute, which transmits via satellite through a receiver.
It's ingested into computer models, including the hurricane models, and that's where the real bonus is for launching more often. We get all that extra data to put into the computer models. Something significant coming toward us from the west during the cool season. We'll launch these an extra time or twice extra per day, so we may launch these 4 times per day.
And that's all it takes to getting up-to-date weather information.
It's a beautiful day in Sarasota, beautiful sky, a lot of sunshine in place, but as we all know, the weather can change very quickly. And when it comes to hurricanes, it's very important to know how to prepare. So we wanted to give you a different perspective on how to prepare this hurricane season. So what we did is we went down to our local forecast office in Ruskin, Florida, to talk to the professionals to see how they prepare on a personal level.
As more and more people move to the Sunshine State, most haven't experienced a hurricane. And even for those who have, it's still a vivid memory. So here's some tips on how to prepare this hurricane season.
I've lived in, we live in Florida in a hurricane-prone area. I've lived in Guam in a very typhoon-prone area. So I'm always prepared. I always have an evacuation plan with my family. I always get my family involved, even with the kids. Don't just tell them, hey, do this, have them come up with some of the things to do.
The former emergency manager for Hillsborough County said that during hurricane season, he never lets his car go below half a tank of fuel. Because if the power goes out, the pumps aren't going to work.
Medicine, you want to make sure that you have cash on hand because power may be out, the ATMs may not be operable. So again, a lot of things that you want to think about, and what I personally do, a lot of important paperwork, I take pictures of. So you look at insurance policies, you look at tax information, you look at medical information. A lot of that could be damaged or lost.
The population has definitely increased across our area over the past several years. Have you been through a hurricane yet?
I have. I believe 2004, I was in Miami. We stocked up on a lot of water, a lot of food. We stayed indoors. I think it was, you had to stay indoors for a couple of days just to make sure everything was safe. Power lines were down. A few cars were destroyed because of trees falling on top of it. So it was pretty severe. It's been 10 years from when it last happened. You can still remember exactly where you were at the time. So for people who have not experienced it, who just moved to Florida, it could be pretty devastating.
2001, so a lot of folks that weren't around in 2001, the Sarasota area was hit with Tropical Storm Gabrielle, which was 70 miles an hour. Had it been 4 miles an hour more, it would have been a Category 1 hurricane. So living in Bradenton, I was without power for 3 days. So absolutely, I did have to use, my hurricane kit, and our batteries that we had ended up draining a little bit, so we had a lot of light candles available to light up the house and stuff at night too. So I have, living here in the Suncoast area, I have had to use my weather-ready kit.
Right after the break, something you don't want to miss. We'll take you inside the Emergency Operations Center and we'll see how they prepare for the storm. After the break, we'll be right back.